Welcome once again to another episode of the OpEdia podcast with your host solomonokukuwafua. Those are my full names. For those of you who have been joining this journey from day one, meaning the first episode until now, as you're all aware that I've already done 5 episodes. So I just want to congratulate everybody who has, commented or liked or followed it through the different platforms that have been mentioned in previous episodes. So thank you so much for being a part of this journey. And of course, to those of you who are watching me or are listening to me right now for the very first time, I'm sure you're going to receive the links in the description from whatever platform you are in, and make sure that you download it, listen to it, or watch it, so that if you love the content that I've provided so far, then you can get to join the family through the social media handles, which you'll also be seen the description, especially for those who are watching it on YouTube. So thank you so much for taking your time to listen or to watch it, because this is worth a precious ornament or something that you can carry along. But yeah, the Opedia podcast is all about me sharing my personal opinion on news stories that have caught my eye, or if not the news stories, then famous headlines which trended in the past few years or more, so that I bring to attention on what people have forgotten, or so that I can use that as a reminder, and give my own opinion on the same, so that you guys can be able to debate it, discuss it, and be able to share on your own opinion. But I also, at the same time, I also use that as a way of motivating people, or to share my own to share knowledge, be able to pass it to the others, because this is not just for me alone, but to everyone that is watching or listening to me right now. So that's the aim of the Opedia podcast. And Opedia comes from the phrase oped, which means opinion editorial, where you always see very often in newspapers. And then the IA, which is the suffix, of course, is from the word Wikipedia. So it's basically going to be a huge catalog of oped podcast that I'm leading on, making sure that to as many that are watching or listening, they get informed, get engaged, and at the same time share it to their loved ones and use it as a form of debate. Yeah, so right now as we speak, I'm going to spend around 30 minutes to be able to share a famous headliner that really got my eye just the other day, but it may have happened way long ago, but just going to bring a reminder. So today's Opedia podcast, the episode title will be called They Run This Town Billionaires. They Run This Town Billionaires. Now if you're wondering why did I come up with this title, is because it came from an article that was published a way back online, and is basically talking about the triple threat that really ganged up together to start a single, not really to start a single, but to create a single called Run This Town, which of course was released more than a decade ago, which I'm about to share more information. And through that single, each and every member of that single became billionaires within a decade or more later. So I'm going to describe who are the people in that single, what's the song all about, how did they manifest that title into becoming billionaires, and I hope that is something worth aspiring for you guys to be joining in the billionaire ranks, because as you have noticed in the previous episodes, it is mainly focused on the Billionaires series, to make it your own playlist. And you've noticed that it has somehow inspired you to really start from somewhere. I mean, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your amount of resources. So long as you start from somewhere, then the journey to 1,000 miles will become easier and not harder for yourself. So that's why I'm giving such content to be able to inspire to as many that are either listening or watching me right now. So of course, without further ado, let me just introduce you once again to the Opedia podcast. For those who are new, for those who are regulars, thank you for being a part of the journey, and let's continue the Mexican wave, so that we create a huge fan base, so in order to not just become a fan base which is so ordinary, but rather become family which is you know, thicker than blood, you know, as the famous proverb says, blood is thicker than water. So that is my hope and prayer for this podcast network, not just in the Opedia, but also in the Words of Solomon and the sports oriented world, which is already a conglomerate of its own from what I've created. So let's move ahead and go straight into the Opedia podcast episode. Of course, like I said, the title of this episode is called The Run This Town Billionaires. As you're all aware, that statement comes from a news article that I saw online some time back, and I just wanted to share with you what is basically being said. I'm not going to read exactly because I'd already written my notes down, and I'm going to just share a review of what the article was saying. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, is Run This Town is from the single by Jay-Z, which he sang on which was released on July 24th, 2009, and it featured Kanye West and Rihanna in that single. So if you for those of you who love listening to Jay-Z and maybe you're aware of what the songs are about, basically the single is all about the Roc Nation empire. As you all know that the year before the single was released, he had launched Roc Nation. How did he launch Roc Nation? Is basically through his earnings that he used to, rely on as a rapper, because before he joined Roc Nation, he used to he used to have another record label which he founded alongside Damon Dash and Karim Back, called Rockefeller, and of course Rockefeller was another conglomerate on its own. And immediately the company started to lose its status because of conflict of interest from the mid 2000s all the way to the mid 2010s. Then you could notice that Jay-Z was just preparing to launch a new empire, which of course will not have the same issues that he had under Rockefeller. And for a bit background of what Rockefeller and its demise was all about, go and check on the previous episodes of this podcast on the playlist on YouTube and be able to know more about what I'm speaking. So Run This Town single was all about the Roc Nation empire, which Jay-Z created a year before the single was released. And you could notice that Rihanna in that song was singing the chorus, Kanye and Jay-Z dropping the bars in the respective verses, according to genius.com. And as you've noticed, as years went by, both of them started launching their own empires. If you look at Jay-Z, of course, Roc Nation is what led him to be a billionaire as of now. Look at Kanye West. He left Roc Nation and to start his own empire called Good Music and many more, which I'll describe later on. You look at Rihanna. She's still under Roc Nation but started her own cosmetics line, which made her to be who she is as a billionaire. So I'll also give more detail on how she reached that rank. And let me start with the one who brought in Kanye West and Rihanna into Roc Nation, and that is Jay-Z. Now, if you can remember, in that single, Jay-Z was the kingpin of that record label, and he had his artists, Kanye West and Rihanna as his best acts around his empire at that time. And from then on, you could notice that Jay-Z was leading a good generation of artists during that time, and until today, Rihanna is still under his record label, but Kanye West is no longer in it, even though he participates Roc Nation events from time to time again, and they are friends also with with Jay-Z. Kanye West being friends with Jay-Z, and by the way, he's no longer called Kanye West, he's called Ye, for the reason why I'm going to explain a bit later on. So that's how it's going down. But speaking of how Jay-Z recruited both Kanye West and Rihanna, it happened similarly but in different years. But if you look at Rihanna, he recruited Rihanna in the mid 2000s from Barbados, because that's where she's from. Signed her as a teenager. I'm sure for most of you who are Rihanna fans, a whole history of music that started from, of course, 2004, 2005 until today. She's already in the music industry for more than 15 years, so she's already a legend in her own like. And for Kanye West, of course, Jay-Z recruited him after the split whereby Rockefeller Records was sold to Def Jam, and then soon after that, Jay-Z became president of Def Jam, even though Kanye West was recruited originally by Dame Dash during the time at Rockefeller. But as soon as Rockefeller Records was heading for a split, that is when now the line was drawn on the sand, and Jay-Z took Kanye West and company, and Dame Dash took his own army. But you saw the result for those of you who have been following the news of the two people, the beef between the two. Jay-Z became who he is today, being a billionaire, running his own empire, and Dame Dash, yes, maybe he had his own empire, but he was not as successful as the way he was at Rockefeller. So that's basically how Jay-Z got the two artists, started getting along with them, signed them, put them in the roster, and already they launched a number of singles before this one called Run This Town. And by the time they conglomerated together to start to create this single, it was a hit maker at that time. At first it was released on radio, and then all of a sudden it went global. And even if you look at YouTube right now, it's still one of the most popular videos by number of views. And we can't deny the fact that that single was like a prophecy in quotes. For some of you are wondering how the triple threat became billionaires, I believe this single was like a prophecy, and it was basically an introduction to their world, not just their individual world, but the world as Roc Nation at that time. So that's how Jay-Z recruited the two. And Jay-Z, how he became a billionaire, of course, it was diversified. If you look at when he used to own Rockefeller and run it alongside Dame Dash and Karim Buck, of course it was not only a music label, but also it also had a fashion line called Rocawear, which is under Def Jam currently, but is not as successful as it is. And remember, Rocawear was one of the the highest grossing fashion labels in hip hop culture, alongside Bad Boy. Look at Fubu, and the likes, to be able to give that competition and that thrive for the hip hop culture, because it was really trending during that time. And until Rockefeller started dying slowly, then I think everybody somehow forgot about it. But yeah, that's basically how Jay-Z got to learn from Rockefeller. And not only Rockefeller was both in fashion and in music, but it was also in film, making their own films, and also had its own brand of drinks, luxury drinks. And that's how Jay-Z grew that empire to become a multi-millionaire. And then when things went south, you all know what happened. Jay-Z went to Def Jam. Rockefeller was sold to Def Jam, took his artists along with him to join the Def Jam, and the rest is history. And you've seen Roc Nation being where it is today. So he basically learned his lessons from Rockefeller to be able to create Roc Nation. And Roc Nation is no longer where it was way back, and it's even way bigger than that. Right now, Roc Nation is dwelling into sports, is dwelling into publishing, is dwelling into media, is dwelling into entertainment, is dwelling into many other industries. And for him personally, Jay-Z is also into the restaurant industry, is also well into, of course, luxury drinks industry, and that's how it propelled him to be a billionaire of some sort. Now, if you were to ask me, how did he join the billionaire ranks? He joined officially for the first time in 2020. If you go to the Forbes list of billionaires in 2020, Jay-Z at that time, he was enrolled in that list, and he was worth $1 billion at that time. $1 billion at that time basically means that he was hip hop's first billionaire officially. So meaning he overtook Dr. Dre, he overtook P. Diddy during that time, and him joining the exclusive group of billionaires. Then the year after, which was last year in 2021, he increased his net worth to $1.4 billion. and as of right now, real-time ranking is now in the range of 1.2 to 1.3 billion dollars. So it's not that bad for him. And by the way, just more info on how he got his net worth. Of course, he used to own Tidal alongside Beyonce and others, and they sold it to Square, which is of course the parent company which owns Twitter and the likes. So that's how Jay-Z also somehow got his cash and be able to be who he is today. So just a little more facts about Jay-Z for those of you who are wondering where I'm getting information from. Of course, some of the information are from Forbes.com, so you can do that during your own time and then be able to give your own analysis on it. Of course, Jay-Z also owns real estate by a massive amount. And just the other day, he was being named as the third highest paid earner according to Forbes magazine, and he earned $340 million in the past year. So, and remember, Jay-Z no longer produces singles, but he rather does that through his collaboration with the entertainment companies and also doing tours through his record label. So that's how he was able to reach that. But other than that, that's it from Jay-Z. And before I go any further, he's also a professional sports agent, which is now been that way for 8 years now, which I'll explain more in the sports oriented world podcast, where I'll be talking about Donda Sports and Roc Nation Sports. So stay tuned as you be a part of this network. So but otherwise, from here in the OpEdia, that's it from Jay-Z. If you want to know his age is 52. He's of course self-made. He's married to Beyonce, and he has 3 children. So that's a little profile about Jay-Z. Most of the information I'm reading is from Forbes.com. So that's how it's going down there. And I can't wait to see what the 2022 list of the Forbes billionaires will put him in. So that's what's up with him. Now, next person I'm talking about here is Kanye West, like I mentioned. Kanye West is no longer called Kanye West. He's now called Ye. And for what reason? I think it's just for branding purposes, be able to be identified more with the different audiences from around the world. And really it caused some star at some point, but people just had to accept who he is. So for Jay-Z, how did he become a billionaire? Without any further ado, one of the ways he did was, of course, he had a lucrative multi-year deal to design sneakers for Adidas, and of course he has his own sneaker brand called Yeezy, and he has been doing that for a number of years right now, and it has given him a lot of esteem, and his brand is being more popular and is giving him higher profits and sales altogether. So his sneaker brand is called Yeezy. So he has a lucrative multi-year deal with Adidas to produce his Yeezys. And then another way of how he made his billions is that he has an annual royalty from Adidas again, which makes Yeezy shoes. Now the Yeezy brand pulled in an estimated $1.7 billion in sales in 2020. So it's basically, number one, he has a lucrative deal to make his sneakers. Number two, he earns royalties from that same a deal from that. So, and then the third way of how he earned his billions is, of course, in June 2020, according to Forbes.com, just as a disclaimer, Gap, the fashion retailer, and Ye announced they will start selling a line of his clothing designed for Gap. So basically, it's similar to his sneakers. So he has a deal with Gap to produce his clothes, his clothing brand, and be able to put it on Gap, and that's how he's able to generate the sales and the revenue for his brand. And of course, the sales of his Yeezy Gap clothing are expected to continue rising, even as they break it down either by quarter or by half. It's still going to rise. And even if you look at the financial statements of his company, it's really going on a rise, and many people, especially the millennials and the Gen Z, are buying more of his clothing. So congrats to him. And of course, he also owns a small stake in the shapewear brand called Skims. Now, if you can remember very well, Skims is owned by Kim Kardashian, and they are no longer, a married couple because they divorced in February 2020 after Kim Kardashian filed for divorce from him. And if you want to know more of how they broke up, please do your own research. Maybe just to give you a little bit of what went down is, of course, the conflict of interest at the same time, child custody, and also business interest coming in between. So that's just a sneak peek, but for the rest, please do your own research. Not that I hate you, but just want to make sure that I don't say anything that is false. Yeah, so that's how he is. And speaking of progress, he debuted at the Billionaires list last year in 2021, and he was put at a net worth of $1.8 billion. And if you look at the real-time rankings, he's also within the range of his last net worth last year and $1.9 billion. So congrats to him. And more about him is that he's the 5th highest paid entertainer according to Forbes magazine, and the numbers is at $235 million. So congrats to him for really taking a step. So his source of wealth basically is music and sneakers, whereas for Jay-Z it is diversified, from media to music to sports and the like. So did you know that Kanye West too has a high school basketball team called the Donda Dubs? I'll explain more of that, which is under Donda Sports in the Sports Oriented World podcast. So stay tuned as I continue giving you more content of the same. So Jay-Z is right now divorced, and is also, did you know, he's a dropout at Chicago State University, and his late mother, Donda West, was a professor at that campus. So really a coincidence, so to say. I don't know if he was a bad boy during his time there when his mother was a professor. I don't know. I don't have that information. So that's it from Kanye West. So now we are jumping into Rihanna. Was of course part of the triple threat of Roc Nation during that time, 2009. And if you look at Rihanna, by the way, before I jump into Rihanna, Kanye West is how old is he? 44. So if you look at Jay-Z is 51, 52. Yeah, 52 years old. Kanye West is 44. So that gap already is what? 8 years. That's the 8-year gap. Then you go to Rihanna. Rihanna, of course, being the first billionaire from Barbados, and just the other day she was enshrined in the national Roll of Honor after Barbados gained independence officially from the United Kingdom, and she was present back home. And if you watch the clips on YouTube on how it went down, you could see the joy in her face, and what a testimony for her, because she really came from humble background, and reaching at that status is really what talked about. So about Rihanna, once again, Rihanna's business is mostly outside her music, mostly on fashion. So without any further ado, let me give you a bit of how she made her billions according to Forbes.com. Now, of course, this all came to the success of cosmetics line Fenty Beauty. Now, of course, Fenty is part of her real name, because her real name is called Robin Fenty. Now, Robin will be spelled R-O-B-Y-N, not Robin with an I, which is of course known to be a male name. Now, Rihanna is female, so they put a Y according to her parents when they were naming her. So Robin with a Y, and Fenty. Fenty is spelled F-E-N-T-Y. So she has a cosmetics line called Fenty Beauty, and it has been doing her good financially. So, and of course, that same company which she co-owns with LVMH, which stands for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, which is a diversified empire on its own. If you break it down, into two. Louis Vuitton is basically fashion, Moet Hennessy is basically a luxury drink. So with that said, it generated more than $550 million in revenue in 2020. So with Fenty Beauty in collaboration with LVMH, that's super. I mean, it has given her a lot of money. Now, her stake in the fast growing cosmetics company comprises the majority of her fortune, according to Forbes. She also has a 30% stake in the Savage X Fenty lingerie line, which raised money at a valuation of $1 billion in February last year. Imagine this time last year, her lingerie line, Savage X Fenty, raised money at a value of $1 billion. Wow. And right now, it's basically should be twice or three times more than that. So that's how it's going down for that from that point. And at a point was this, according to Forbes, it says that her high fashion line with LVMH didn't do well, and it had to halt operations at that same period last year. So despite losing one, she has another one called Fenty Beauty, and it has given her a lot of financial goodies. So even with that, she has recruited many influencers, many models, many famous people to be able to popularize her brand, and it has done a lot of good both on social media and also on the financial side. So that's how Rihanna made most of her fortune. But not forgetting also her music catalog, which is being seen on all different platforms, either on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and the like, and it has really generated revenue for herself and also the record label which is Roc Nation. So that's how it went down for Rihanna. She's 33 years old currently. She's also self-made. Most of her wealth is from cosmetics and music. And right now, as we speak, she's having a baby bump with ASAP Rocky, and within 9 months from February or late January, she's going to have a child, meaning she'll give birth before the end of 2022. So congratulations to Rihanna, and yeah, make sure for those of you maybe who are Rihanna fans, send congrats to her on her first child with ASAP Rocky. But yeah, so with her, Rihanna, she's going to debut on the Forbes Billionaires list this year in 2022. But as we speak of the real-time rankings, she's now worth between 1.7 to 1.8 billion dollars. So she's basically competing with Kanye West to see who is the richest protege of Jay-Z. But other than that, Jay-Z, he doesn't mind even if he's less richer than Kanye West or Rihanna. So long as he has paved the way for them, he discipled them, he mentored them in many different ways, then they all win, because at the end of the day, these three were the biggest artists of Roc Nation during the late 2000s to the mid 2010s. And right now they're all on their own, except Rihanna, who is still under Roc Nation. They are continuing to do good. And for Kanye West, he has started also diversifying his empire. Now his empire is no longer only just on fashion, but also it's on sports, which I'll discuss more in the Sports Oriented World podcast. But under that, I think my conclusion to this is, from that single to where they are right now as billionaires independently, wow. And I just pray that they continue to do so and be more successful in all that they do. And yeah, that's it from this episode of the OpEdia podcast. Thank you once again to everybody who is watching me or listening to me right now. So without any further ado, if you like this content, make sure you comment. If you are watching it on YouTube, make sure you maybe save it if you are listening to it on whatever platform you love using, and maybe later on you can download it and be able to have that as a debate or as a form of discussion to your loved ones. But otherwise, for the regulars, you all know what to do. Make sure on YouTube you click you continue to share the link to those who are new, and for those who want to join the family, make sure you follow it on the social media handles, and we get to have that conversation whereby you show me some love, and at the same time I will show you love, because it's a win-win situation for everybody. But otherwise, that's it from me, and I got to go. But otherwise, have a great day from wherever you are around the world.